Okay, aloha everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to dive a little bit more subtly and precisely and thoroughly into the can of worms that I opened up yesterday on Facebook when I made a post that I thought was just so sweet because a woman client of mine texted in asking from the depth of her heart. She had this epiphany like, wow, I'm really realizing how tender and vulnerable a man's heart is, and in particular her man's heart, or a man in her life. And she asked a very sincere question: how do I attune to that man's vulnerability? What does he need? It was the way she expressed it was, I'm realizing how fragile a man's open heart is. What does it need to remain open? And I just think that's such a gorgeous question. Now, as I post something like that on Facebook, what it does is it goes ping, 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 and brings online every single other angle at which we could look at this one specific question that was coming from a woman who had an epiphany. So she's on her journey of becoming more masterful, more whole, more in her awakened capacity to show up relationally in a truly healthy, loving way. And she's having this epiphany and asking a question right from there. Wow, how do I show up such that with this new awareness I have of the fragility of a man's heart, so that I can help him continue to keep his heart open? And what a beautiful question. And the answer in some ways is very simple, but it opens the doorways to a myriad of other angles and questions and important nuances of all of this dance of relationship on planet Earth. Not to mention not just dance of relationship in general, but where we're each at in that dance and how to show up in it in a way that sort of optimizes this evolution that we can each go through. Because most people don't just kind of like pop, like instantly, like a flip of a switch to the highest level of our capacity for awakened relating. And so all of the comments on the Facebook thread were just so heartfelt and so beautiful, and each kind of drawing out a different nuance. And one of the answers, or one of the comments on there, calling it an answer because he's saying like, as a man, you just don't need anything to keep your heart open. Just be there. Just be in that open-hearted space no matter what comes. Now that's sort of the peak that is in our capacity as a human being, as a human man, as a human woman, to keep our heart open no matter what. But for most of us, this is a journey. It's like a scaffolding, unfolding, evolving, layer by layer, level by level kind of movement of our journey toward more and more embodied wholeness, more and more awakened capacities, more and more nuance of how to show up relationally that might feel really natural for some, and very like daunting and confusing and mysterious and like not even on the radar for others. So in my teachings and in my offerings, and this especially comes online when I work with people individually and I work with couples, because then I can really get in and work on the personalized, custom tailored where you're at, and how to almost like even on the deepest level of your being kind of do alchemy, do healing, do repair from the history that you've lived in, where the emotional body is still humming from imprints in the past, and then co-creating that and replaying that in current relationships, and even magnetizing into your life repetitive patterns of relationship, or even just dating or lack of relationship can be being manifested from these deep imprinted places in us. And for someone to just say, oh yeah, just jump to that place where you're just open-hearted and you just completely, doesn't matter how the other person shows up, just be that already, has kind of true as some of those teachings can be. It's kind of like Byron Katie's teachings. It's sort of like, just turn it all around and it's all good and you don't need anybody's love and you can just pop there. And it is possible. That has happened on the planet. I've seen it a few times. But more often than that, what actually occurs for us as human beings is a much more organic, engaged, heartfelt, sincere, devotional journey where we kind of scaffold our way into that poof. At some point there can be this very, very radical turnover of your consciousness where in Zen they call it jumping off the 100-foot pole. So we're all aiming to get to that fully, completely enlightened way of being, experiencing ourself and life, and then even relating from that place of just being done with the whole thing off the pole. But for most of us, most of the time, we are in our particular place in that journey, and we are looking for how to show up in a way that both heals our own heart and being and soul and helps to release us from the old patterns of repetitive and frustrating kind of cycles that take over when our conditioning, it keeps triggering off in similar ways. And of course, if at all possible, we would ask the other person to show up. So when somebody probably read that Facebook post, like a lot of men, I think, read it, or these kind of higher level conscious people are reading it like, well, the man shouldn't need the woman to do A, B, or C for him to keep his heart open. But from the angle that it was asked, how sincere and how beautiful from a woman's perspective, the feminine heart. Whoa, epiphany, I've been playing a part in this, because it is always a two-way dance. And our hearts are kind of like evolving, growing, moving, unfolding in a dance with each other on this planet. And I do feel like there's ways that we can start to show up. And the sincere, beautiful question from this woman's heart, how can I show up in a way that would help this man's heart stay open? Now, I feel like one of the beautiful questions that then just brings right online very quickly after that is, how can a man show up in a way that helps a woman's heart to stay very open? How can we each stay? And then the third question that gets very highlighted in all the comments, or a lot of the comments, is, well, how do we show up and stay open-hearted no matter what the other person does? And to me, all three of those questions are very beautiful, quintessentially important, vital, deep, nuanced questions that will serve our existence to answer. So I'm going to take a little stab at just kind of pointing to a few of the answers to each of those three questions, and then just drop that in the bucket and see where that takes us individually and collectively. Now, the invitation, I feel, is always individually. Where am I at? How can I be working at my particular, I call it our station, like my actual station. Where is my being actually at right now? I can't just pretend I'm Byron Katie. I can't just pretend I'm, like one of the men on the Facebook thread who I legitimately feel is in this place of having fallen off the pole. And he often comments on my stuff, well, can't we just like pop there? And I'm like, yeah, you have. That's freaking beautiful. What a miracle. And more, if you have the magic pill to get us all there, please give it to us, myself included. But my sense is we're all in a nuanced way, working ourselves into that. In fact, my journey has been one of like a kind of healing level. I call it a station. Like, I'm a new person. I'm showing up in a new way. What shows up in my life is a different thing. So we have to, in my opinion, kind of own our station, meet it where it's at, and work at our legitimate edges in a sincere and devotional way. That's the ultimate bedrock foundation of any anything that's going to serve us individually and collectively, is what can I be doing with my current level of incarnating, my current level of emotional embodiment, my imprinting and my conditioning having the better of me or not. Where can I be applying my loving, skillful, diligent, devoted intention and attention, such that a shift in that level of my capacity, who and what I actually am, and how I'm showing up relationally can occur. So that to me is like something I really want to drop in, is like, where can these teachings be like sincerely looked at from this arrows in approach, and then any other wisdom you glean from what we talk about others or your partner, how can that just be used to have you empathize and show up more skillfully, instead of use that from the usual place that we hang out in our personality minds. And especially, again, once relationship is gone long enough and this certain sticky dynamic dance has taken over, if we use these teachings as a way to inform our contracted pain body and use it against the other person, or just to kind of further entrench the whole cycle of like, oh, well, it's all fucked anyway, then we're just going to stay stuck, instead of kind of like soften, open, release, and expand into a new existence that we're then going to feel at the very least within ourselves. We're going to feel it in whatever relationship is in front of us, and we are going to then become a magnet for a healthier version of that relationship dance into our life. So that's the main invitation of any and all teachings that I ever give. So let's start there, just taking a breath, feeling okay. There's a lot here. Even my teaching can trigger that pain body and just have somebody want to just, but this, and it's like, yes, and that, and there's just a facet. Like, let's just look at one facet, one invitation at a time, and see where that takes us. So I want to kind of name and look at each of the facets that was pointed at in the comments to my Facebook post yesterday.